Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Shahin Ghadir with the Fertile Life Podcast. I am very excited to have two very special guests sitting across the table from me right now. Tyler Ferguson and his husband, Justin Mikita, have honored me to be on the podcast, and we are very, very excited to have you guys here. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I'm very proud of you. Two very good daddies, dads that let their babies even sleep on their chests while on an airplane in public.
That's right.
The greatest victory.
How's it going? How do you like being dads?
It's been great. I mean, you have this idea in your head. I think every parent has this idea in their head what kind of parent they're going to be. And you sort of make these grand proclamations to yourself and to your family. Like, we're going to do things this way. And then it all changes. But I think we're learning and we're having a really great time. With Beckett is now almost 16 months in a few days, right? Is that right? 16 months. So, he's at a really fun age. He's communicative, and, it's like it's all the cliches that you hear that, every day is different and they grow up so fast, and, it's like your heart living outside your body. It's all those things that I kind of rolled my eyes at. They actually are true.
They really are. One of the things I was so excited to get started, I usually give everyone the opportunity to introduce themselves and what they're the most proud of. Mm-hmm. So I assumed everyone knows, but I'm going to go back for 1 second. Jesse, is there something that you would like someone who's listening who doesn't know everything about you that you want them to know?
Well, I'm an actor. I am a working actor, which I guess is what I'm most proud of, because there is a difference between the two. But I just finished an 11-year run on Modern Family right before the pandemic, actually. So I was also very proud to finish that run before everything shut down. And I'm very proud of that role and the sort of social ramifications that part also allowed me to have.
I love that, and we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah.
And Justin, how about you?
I'm Justin Mikita, and I'm a lawyer. I made it through law school, which was
I'm proud
a
of you
feat.
for that. Yeah.
I passed the bar, which was also a feat. Jesse had to live through me studying for the bar and was very patient and kind to me. We made it through the pandemic, like all of us, which I'm proud of us all for. And we made it through the pandemic with a newborn, which was not in the plan, but I think was ultimately a beautiful blessing because we got to spend a lot of time at home with him.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I have lived through the bar as well. My sister, who's older, and it was sad because my mom, dad, and myself had to live through all of that.
Yeah.
And God bless you.
It's brutal.
I think living through the bar exam with someone else is more painful than going to med school yourself.
Well, and I mean, Justin didn't say, and I'm sure you don't care if I mention this, but like I was with him when he was waiting for bar results the first time, and he didn't pass. And we were very early on in our relationship, and brand new, like a few months. And he was so devastated, and I didn't fully know how to comfort him. And what I'm really proud of, Justin got right back up on his feet and started studying immediately for it, immediately. So then I lived through him studying for the bar again, and then ultimately passing. And funny story is we were seeing a friend's show in New York, this sort of very heavy show, the day that the bar results came out, and an intermission of this sort of very tragic show.
For those who don't know, the bar exam results come out
Right.
at 6 p.m. West Coast time or 9 p.m. East Coast time, and they post them online, and you go online at that moment, you type in your login information, and then it either says you passed or it says page not found. Not that you didn't pass, it just says page not found, which is actually really cruel and unusual punishment. And then for 2 days you're in a purgatory where then on the Sunday following the Friday results, you are able to see the master list of everyone who passed and did not pass. And so it's published to the world. So anyway, sorry.
So on that Friday, we were going to the theater in New York, and Justin, I saw him slip the iPad into his bag, and I was like, oh gosh, he's going to check these results. He's not going to wait till we get home. And at intermission, and I had lived through him like crying on the floor when he didn't pass the first time. At intermission, at this sold out show, he pulls out his iPad and checks the bar results, and I'm like, oh dear God, this could be really bad for all of us and the whole New York theater community that's here tonight. And he passed, and he was just so excited. And we went back to act 2 of this very heavy, sort of dark show, and Justin just couldn't stop smiling. And people thought he was a maniac.
And the topic of the show was very, very heavy.
Like
to
incest.
The point, yeah, there was like, it was abuse, there was all these things, and I'm just sitting there beaming in the middle of the theater just with the biggest grin because I had finally made it through the journey. It was really rough. I often, people will send their friends, cousins, uncles, neighbors who are interested in law school to me to talk about my experience. And I always start the process by saying, if you really want to go to law school, talk to someone else. Because it was just the most challenging years of my life. And though I don't regret it, it was, it just was so hard. So hard.
You know what? I really need to introduce you to my sister. She didn't pass, and I'm sure she doesn't mind that I'm saying this. And then she passed. And that was painful for the entire family. And when she called me to tell me she passed, in that sentence she said, "And now I can have a baby."
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she was married in a newlywed relationship with not passing and then having to take it again. And the first thing in that conversation was, "Now I'm ready to have a baby." So I feel, and she only then worked for 6 months after that and never went back to law again.
Yeah.
So I'm 100% sure that she would agree with you in every single way. And it's brutal. It's just absolutely brutal. But hey, look, then it led for you to have a baby too. So you guys have a lot in common.
The most charming part of me taking the exam the second time was I took it on Ontario, California, which is just, 45 an hour drive inland from LA. I think it's east. And Jesse came to visit me on night 2 of, in California, it's a 3-day test. And I was staying at, like the whatever,
Best Western,
some sort of hotel right there, and it was all happening at a convention center. And Jesse came to visit, and we went to eat at the Olive Garden, which Jesse had never been to. And we're
I had been to the Olive Garden. I hadn't been to that location.
Okay, I thought you had never been to.
Who hasn't been to an Olive Garden?
And we, we're smack dab in the middle of the run on Modern Family, so it was a moment in
people
time.
Were very confused as to why I was hanging out with all the people taking the law exam
at the Olive Garden
in Ontario.
Because everyone at the restaurant was like on their dinner break from the bar exam, and so I was just pulling their chain, like, "Oh yeah, I'm taking the bar exam too."
Character research.
Yeah. Torts and contracts.
All the words that you never want to hear again in your life, I'm sure. Well, I'm glad that allowed you to move on. And you guys have now been married for how long?
Over 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah, we've been together for almost 11 or 12 now. I can't fully...
No, we've been married for... This is what happened. Years. No, we got married in 2015.
2013.
Is that true?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
true.
yes. Okay,
We've been married 8 years because the 8-year wedding anniversary is pottery, and we went to a pottery class for yes. Okay.
Yes. We do this every year.
We
talk in circles about how many years it's been.
Okay, wait. Does anyone know where your kid is right now? Okay, I just want to make sure.
Well, now I'm not thinking about it. We've been together. We've been married 8 years and together for about almost 12.
Yeah.
And we always talked about starting a family, not in the early days of dating, because that's just too much pressure for anyone and a little creepy to bring it up on date 3. But I think it had we had discussed, both wanting to have a family, and there's a 10-year age difference between the two of us. And I was raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Justin was raised here in Los Angeles. And so we have very different relationships with what it is to be gay, just from our upbringing and our age difference, I think. And for me, being a little older and from a more, I'm just going to say, conservative area, it was something I thought could be really cool, but I didn't think that it wasn't something that I aspired to. And I think for Justin, it was never a question in his mind that he would get married and also start a family. And am I right in saying that?
Yeah. I also grew up in a conservative pocket yes. of Southern California. I grew up in Simi Valley, California, which I don't think my family nurtured a overwhelmingly progressive environment, but at the same time they weren't conservative. So it was just sort of my own intuition of understanding, I think, that no matter who I am, I was going to have all of the things that everyone else had. And I think that's mostly attributed to our age difference, because yes. I just think that being a gay kid in Albuquerque, New Mexico, born in 1975, you just don't expect that marriage is going to happen for you.
When I was a teenager, though, I didn't have pop culture references like Will and Grace on television to sort of aspire to and be like, that's something I can like see myself being one day.
Yeah.
And you had that,
and I just had,
great.
yeah. Exactly.
Or a Mitchell.
Exactly, and I do talk about that a lot. Like, I'm so proud that I could now be that person for kids, living in less liberal areas, and like they can see themselves in that relationship. I mean, that was very important for me. But when Justin and I were dating, and then we got married, we'd always talked about starting a family, and Justin always said, and I think a lot of it's because there is an age difference of 10 years, like, I want to be married for like just 5 years before even thinking about doing this. And I was like, okay, I'm a little older, but that's fine with me. My back would say differently now, but yeah, I'm happy we actually had that time to sort of just be together before bringing someone else into our family.
5 was also a very arbitrary number for me. It was just sort of...
Yeah, because it ended up being more like 6.5.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think that for me, the process was... the mental process of starting a family was that at the beginning of our relationship, I was very clear with Jesse that I really wanted it. And then as we got closer to it, I got more and more afraid of it.
But I think that's what every couple
I'm sure. It's
definitely true for every single couple out there. And, today I was doing a consultation with a patient, and when I asked her, do you have any other questions? She's like, I'm just like really nervous and really excited at the same time. I don't really know how to explain this emotion I'm having at the end of this hour talking to you.
Yeah.
And I said to her, it's pretty much the emotion that everyone has. Mm-hmm. They're really excited to start. This is something that everyone wants, or else they wouldn't be on the phone with me. Yeah. But you're also nervous because you don't know if you're going to be that person that has a beautiful, easy path or lots of bumps in the road. Mm-hmm. And it happens for everyone. I mean, there's always something that happens, whether it's having to go down the path of fertility in my clinic or whether it's just naturally at home. But I do want to talk a little bit about your character, Mitchell, on Modern Family. I've been entertained by that show. I loved it. I thought there was so many amazing, talented people on that show. And thank you for entertaining America for that show. But did you have any say in your character?
Well, I mean, I guess sort of intuitively, yes. I was never too far away from that character. When I auditioned for the part, I sort of just read it as if I was me. If that character was me, obviously a heightened version that's a little bit more intelligent than I am. He went to law school, Mitchell.
I know. That's why
I didn't even take college.
You just went through the bar exam without going to the schooling.
That's true. But I think the writers were also very interested in pulling from real life. A lot of the storylines on Modern Family came from things that happened in our families, the writers' families and the actors' families, and so things that we would share just in casual conversation on set. We'd pick up a script 2 weeks later, and all of a sudden that thing would be in the script. So we all sort of contributed to those characters in a just very organic way.
And not just your character either. There were some things that would happen in our life. I can't think of one example, but for all of the characters and all of the families, they might pop into somebody else's storyline.
Right, exactly. And also, this is kind of funny, but in season 5, my character Mitchell gets married to his partner Cameron, and that all happened because in that moment, it was when Proposition 8 here in California was being overturned and marriage was legalized in California again, and it was a very big moment for us. And Justin, my husband, in real life, was working actually on the non-for-profit that was funding the case, and so he had a lot of inside information. He was in contact with the plaintiffs and the lawyers, and my writers on Modern Family that summer were my writers. The writers of Modern Family that summer were trying to break stories for the next season, and they wanted Mitch and Cam to be married, but only if Proposition 8 was overturned, because we wanted to live in real life, like we wanted to live in the world that we're all living in. And so they were calling Justin and asking him if he thought it was actually going to pass, because they really wanted to break the story. So he was like giving them as much information as he could, but at the same time,
I obviously didn't have the answer. I didn't know if it was going to pass, but I was heavily involved in the case. I was there for the oral arguments at the Supreme Court, and in fact, in the episode where Mitch and Cam get married, and Prop 8 is overturned in California, there's footage from the steps of the Supreme Court, and all of the banners for the American Foundation for Equal Rights, which is the organization that I was the development director for, are all over, and I'm in the crowd somewhere.
And it was my character Mitchell was watching that footage in the show, which is very surreal.
Wow, that is so interesting.
And that's actually the same summer that Justin and I got married, so I had 2 weddings that year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is wonderful.
One was a little more tasteful than the others. I won't say which is which. Actually, I will say it was ours.
I'm sure you guys...
No shade to the art department on Modern Family, but ours was a little nicer.
Where did you guys get married?
In New York City at a loft space or a event space in Soho on Mercer Street. It was beautiful. It was just a raw space, floor to ceiling windows with exposed brick walls, and we built out this beautiful wedding. We had Tony Kushner officiate our wedding. He's the playwright and
wrote Angels in America and wrote Lincoln.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And it was a really special. It was actually the hottest night in New York, hottest day in New York in that year, and they were having rolling blackouts. And so that was a little panic-inducing. Mm-hmm. And we had, 250-person wedding, all these people flown in to the city, and were being threatened by rolling blackouts. But it turned out to be really great.
Like I said, there's always something.
Yeah.
There's always something. So how are you guys enjoying being dads right now?
You said earlier, like when you are looking to become a parent, it's that excitement and then like absolute fear, and it's like those two like polar opposites. And I feel like day to day it's sort of the same thing. Like there are moments when you're like, this is the greatest thing I've ever done, and then there are moments where like, I'm so tired, what have I done to my life? And it happens within 5 minutes, truly.
Believe me, I hear you.
And then back to the other way, like we're like, this is so great. He's doing something so cool and so wonderful, and he loves me so much. And then he's like, screaming on the floor, and we don't know what's wrong, and you're in misery again. So it's like back and forth. It's like a little bipolar.
It's gonna be back and forth a lot more for a long time.
Yeah.
And you're right. There's moments that are just absolutely unbelievable and amazing. Mm-hmm. And that's why I always say that I think parenting is like the absolute hardest job in the world. Yeah. I think I have a much easier job going and making babies at the office than my wife who stays home with 4 kids, because it's enough to drive someone completely crazy if you don't get a break.
Yeah.
And you can't get there's always something when there's 1 kid, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
4 sounds exhausting. My mom and dad had 4, and we were just in Mexico. We went away for the weekend with Beckett, and there was a couple there with 3 kids, 1 a toddler, and then 1 probably 8, and then 1 11. And we were just looking at each other thinking, that poor couple, they're outnumbered.
They're outnumbered.
How do they even?
And we can tell the middle one was the troublemaker. We're like, she causes problems.
Yeah. She probably tries to convince the others, like, hey, you don't have to listen.
Yeah, we saw the whole dynamic. We had the whole story planned.
You could have written their story for them.
We had figured them all out over our...
But I do love how you guys travel, and a significant amount, it looks like, with Beckett, because we always traveled. My oldest, when she was 3 months old, we went to Europe for 3 weeks. Wow. And we were lucky. I think we were just so stupid. Maybe we didn't know.
Yeah.
We took a plane ride and we stood up. The people behind us said to us, "You had a baby with you?" And I was like, "Wow, And then we've had like flights from hell, where like you just thought that was how it's going to always be.
Right.
And we've had like flights where we had like 2 twins that were 4 months old. She was 3 years old, and a 7-hour delay. Wow. So and then we had to sleep over in like some motel that the airline took us to. Right. So we've had those events as well. But I think it's a really good habit, I tell all my friends, to start traveling with your kid at a younger age, because then it's not completely novel to them. Right. And it lets the dynamic of a family kind of grow. And one of my most special times with my kids is when I'm away from the office and we are on a beach or on a fun vacation where you get to just spend some really nice time with your kids. And you guys haven't even experienced this, but like 7th grade is hell. Like I'm like, wait, let me see how to do that fraction again. So it just gets, when everyone says it gets more and more complicated, it's absolutely true. And that's why it's beyond important to enjoy every second while you can.
Right. That's
we had definitely thought we would travel a lot more than we have. I mean, obviously the pandemic was, we were at home for the first
we were pretty grounded.
15, 14 months. And then finally we started. And Mexico was the second trip. The first was to New York, which was terrifying. I mean, the first trip with your child, and Beckett was how old when we went?
Just about a year.
Yeah, and so we just were so overprepared. We lost sleep for 3 days. I mean, we were just, because, it's the unknown. And of course he was wonderful and so easy, and it was a success for us. And so then we got overconfident on the way home and were totally unprepared and had the flight from hell, as you call it. And so it's just so funny seeing both dynamics, and they definitely are. It's a challenge flying with kids, but I'm prepared to do it more and more because I think it'll get easier.
Now we know what to expect.
And you're okay to break rules when you travel. Just like we're breaking rules and we're doing all the things that we don't normally do, it's important for parents to understand it's also a trip for them. It's also novel being in an airplane and not knowing what it is. So like all the rules that we usually have like at home that we try to keep, like they're all gone. I mean, like you give the iPad the entire time, it's okay. Cookies, anything. But be careful. You give them a little bit too much sweets and then they're bouncing off the walls and you're like, why did I just do that?
Yes. We were, one of our grand proclamations before we had Beckett was that we weren't going to do screens in the house, and we actually have been pretty good about not doing that. And then it really backfired on us on the airplane when we needed him to watch something and just like settle down and sit down because he wasn't interested in it.
Yeah,
he doesn't. Did we overcorrect?
He doesn't understand what a screen is. We got him a little kid iPad and installed some shows. He has no shows that he watches. He doesn't know how to wear headphones, so none of it made sense to him. So he had no interest.
That's so, well, first of all, I commend you. The things that we do for our first child that we just completely forget for like number 2, 3, and 4. Like, I find my little one, I'm like, here's an iPad, just look at it. You know what?
Yeah, we're going to introduce our second one to Squid Game.
Definitely.
Right away.
The fact that my kids actually have talked to their friends about that is actually scary.
Yes.
I'm like, why do your friends know about this? And we got an email from school, a very progressive school on the west side here, that said, we have heard some kids wanted to dress up as characters of the script. I'm like, how did these kids even know this?
Wow.
We think it's completely inappropriate in every single way. Please make sure. And I agreed for once with everything in that email.
Absolutely agree. Yeah.
Yeah, that show, there was a couple literally nights that I had to take like a little piece of my Valium to fall asleep after that.
Yeah. Yes, Justin just started it, so
I watched an episode today, actually.
It gets a little bit crazier as it goes on, but it gets very, to be honest, I think it's incredibly well written.
Yeah, I do too.
Do you write?
I do a little bit, yeah.
What kind of writing do you do?
Is it a cookbook?
Oh, okay, great.
So I actually wrote a physical book, but I do like essays. I've written a lot of essays. I haven't written any scripts or anything, but I executive produce some things with Justin, some things on my own as well. But I work with writers on their projects. So the idea, I get writer's block very easily. The minute I have an assignment to write something, and the cookbook was a really good example of that. Fortunately for the cookbook, I had a writing partner. My friend Julie, who's my cooking partner, and she's on the cover with me. So like we really truly co-wrote the book together. So I had someone to bounce my ideas off of, but it was also her first book, and we were both just so terrified.
But you guys were actually typing and writing yourself? You didn't have like a ghost writer with your...
No.
Wow, that's impressive.
Ourselves. Yeah, and I had a really good time. I mean, it was fun, and it's a very entertaining book to read. Like, you have to write these head notes for each recipe and sort of explain what the recipe means to you and why it's there. And that's where I sort of like really had the opportunity to shine. And it's not just like writing 2 tablespoons of salt. Like I actually got to like put some character into the book.
I have a question for Justin. So everyone in America knows Jesse as Mitchell, and he's hilarious. Is he funny at home?
Sometimes.
Asshole.
Sometimes?
Yes, he's funny. He's very funny. He likes to make people laugh, and that follows him home and with his friends and family, and it's his
the issue
greatest.
that Justin's having is the jokes I have he's heard before. So like when I have a new audience,
it's as if he goes through the Rolodex.
So if I come over for dinner, then Justin's going to be rolling his eyes and
because I've heard the funniest person. Like, how are you so witty? Justin's like, these are his jokes for the new people.
And occasionally, he comes up with a new one, and we laugh for a while.
So are you funny saying jokes, or are you funny saying stories?
It's situational comedy.
Anecdotes.
Situational comedy.
Got it.
Yeah, it's he's not really a joke teller.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say. My friends.
Observational humor.
That's I love that kind of humor, by the way. My friends usually think I'm really funny. My wife doesn't think I'm funny at all.
Really?
At all. She just doesn't understand why they think I'm even funny.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
aggressive.
And also, the thing is, like, it's hard to always be on. It's like
Yes.
one thing you go to a dinner with a couple for like 2 hours. Like, we went last night to this new restaurant in Beverly Hills, and we were laughing, and I was making laugh. And, like, you just can't be like that 24 hours a day.
No.
And it's draining, actually, to have that expectation of people.
Someone was saying, we're talking about a book that I read, Beckett. I don't remember what the book was, but this person was like, "Oh, I bet you're great when you read books. I bet you do all the different voices and stuff." I was like, "Actually, I don't." I'm like, usually by that point, the damn too tired. He's half listening. He's sort of squirming around. I'm not doing voices. Maybe later.
That's so funny because when my youngest is 4 and I've read her books and I do these weird accents and stuff, and she's like, "Daddy, not that voice, your normal voice, please."
Okay.
So she doesn't even want it.
Right.
And one day Beckett's going to tell you what he wants or doesn't want out of your voice, by the way.
Don't do the voice, yes.
That's hilarious.
But Jesse, do you think that I'm funny?
Oh, I do.
That was going to be my next question, by the way.
I do think you're funny, and there's no parameters on that. There's no... Yeah, I think you're funny.
Always?
No, not always.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone who's always funny is not funny.
Yeah.
Right.
So that is actually, and there's a lot of grins going on right now. I like this. I know not anyone's going to see that, but that's good. I like that.
You're ridiculous sometimes. Like
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, sometimes
Like ridiculously funny or just ridiculous?
Just
No,
ridiculous.
just ridiculous.
Just over the top. And so that is humorous to Jesse.
Yeah, that is funny to me.
You're doing a lot of advocacy work, I know.
Yes.
And I know that you always have done charitable work. And I don't know if you remember this, but like years ago at Harry Winston, there was an award evening
I remember this, yeah.
where I got an award and so did you.
That's right. I think you mentioned that when we first
Yeah,
met.
it was just like, it was a quick night.
Yeah.
And you just kind of walked in and walked out.
I think I still have it. Wasn't the award like a big diamond?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in my office.
Yeah, it's in my office too.
Yeah. And then I got a huge picture of myself and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. So it's in my wife's office behind the door.
Oh,
so
that's a good place for you.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But are you doing a lot of work like that together or individually?
Yes, both. I mean, our big foundation that we have together, we set up originally. It was called Tie the Knot. We actually just rebranded. Actually, I'll let you talk about it. You're better at that than I am. He developed it for us.
We launched Tie the Knot in 2012 when there were 7 states with marriage equality and the District of Columbia. And we launched it to advocate for marriage across the United States. And as the years went on, states were, we were going at marriage equality from different strategies, both in local, state law and also federal law. And so we saw various states pass marriage equality legislation throughout the years, and then finally all the way to Prop 8, and then in 2015 when federal law passed marriage. And so Tie the Knot existed as a bow tie company where we created this neckwear, and all the proceeds from the sales went to the various organizations on the ground marching for marriage. And we just rebranded this year as Pronoun, which is still an LGBTQ organization, though now we're obviously marriage we have. And, I constantly am seeing people talk about how, we have marriage and so the fight is over. And it's so frustrating because marginalized people are continually marginalized. They just are marginalized in different ways. And yes, we have marriage, though now we are fighting different battles and will continue to. Trans people are being murdered in the street, and adoption is still not legal for same-sex couples in certain states around the country. And, there's a plethora of issues that we still face as queer people. And so the fight continues. And so as long as there's work to be done, we'll advocate for it. And we still do it in the same way, which is cause marketing. So we sell a product and write checks to the organizations who are on the ground doing the work. And then occasionally we'll show up and with a bullhorn and do some marching too, though we can't do that every day, obviously. But it's stuff that we're really passionate about, it comes naturally to us because we are queer, and in case you didn't know. And
I knew, by the way.
And so, and that's why it's all synergistic, because Mitchell and the work that I was doing and our relationship and all the things, it just all felt really genuine to us. And I think that's why it's always been so successful, because we care a lot about it.
Yeah. Well, I love that, because I think giving back is so important, and doing things to help others who are going to be in your path. I have a question. At any time when thinking about being a parent, did you feel like this is going to be challenging, not just by, getting an egg donor and a surrogate? Did you ever feel challenged in any way? Or you just knew I could do it and I'm going to do it?
We felt challenged in a million ways, but do you mean because being queer parents, or what do you mean?
Well, in any aspect of it, because I really want, one of the goals I have of you guys being here today is that there's going to be other dads out there, whether they're single or married, gay couples, that want to start this journey and are truly overwhelmed. I mean, I do a lot of consultations with amazing guys, sometimes single, most of the time in relationships, and they're overwhelmed. I mean, it's not something that like many, a heterosexual couple knows that one day they'll have sex and it may happen, or if not, they come to a clinic. But for the gay couples, there's a lot involved. We've been through a lot with each other trying to figure this out, and we were very successful and did very well. We had bumps on the road as well. But I kind of want to just navigate a little bit about your thoughts and what you'd like to give back to anyone who's in your shoes, as a newlywed couple or a couple that's been dating for those, how many years was it? 5, and have to now talk about it to move forward. What advice would you give, or what would you want to say to someone that's about to start this journey? Probably one of the biggest journeys of someone's life is to become a parent.
Right.
I think, just from my perspective, I'm such a control freak that this process for me was, I felt completely out of control, and at the same time that I had to make too many decisions, which is really challenging for me. It just, the magic of what you're saying, a heterosexual couple who's able to conceive naturally, they just get pregnant, and then it's just sort of the will of the universe for them to have a child, right? But for us, there are so many steps in which we have to take to...
Where decisions have to be made.
Decisions that have to be made, and it sort of felt, at least in theory, that the magic gets taken out of it, because it's just sort of this scientific journey.
What was your hardest decision in this process?
It's interesting. I don't know if it was the hardest, but one that really stands out for me, and I know Justin's going to agree because we talked about it all the time, was when we were choosing our egg donor, and I think we even talked to you about this. There was a moment where, like, why are we looking at like white women? Like what? Like why not another race? Like why are we just like singly looking at white women? And it was that thing of like, well, if we have a half Asian child or a half black child, like that's something that we can't relate to. Like that race is something, like their race is something that all of a sudden we are separate from. We don't know how to empathize with that. And so we ended up going with a white egg donor because we wanted to be able, we didn't want that extra
another layer
of things, something that we couldn't explain, help them with.
So, by the way, I do have patients of mine that pick egg donors or sperm donors from completely different races.
Right.
And I just let them know, I think it's a beautiful thing and you do exactly what you need to, but you better be prepared for just one more layer of, I don't want to call it, complication, it's not, but complexity. And yes, I could imagine, because almost everyone who's been through this process, I think the selection of your egg donor is incredible, and it's a difficult process that you never know if you're doing the right thing.
It's impossible to know, and you're looking at basically a number on a page and a photo and some facts about health and history, and it's like online dating. It's sort of this. It feels arbitrary in a lot of ways, and all based on things that you are so against naturally. Like, for example, you're looking at a picture and you're like, oh, she's pretty, so I guess that's one. Sorry, just smack the mic. That's one thing. Or it's just like, she likes raspberries. Okay, that sounds good. It's just like such a weird process that ultimately we just had to pick one.
you know, because it felt so overwhelming.
I think that was like, if there was a piece of advice to give, and it's so easy to say this and after we've been through it, but it's just to try and not overthink things too much. You know, we trusted with you, these egg donors that were coming to us were all healthy women who were going to give us a great kid at the end of the day. And so we narrowed it down to like 6 finalists and just sort of picked one day. And after we picked, it felt really weird that was this person, this stranger, was going to be sharing half of our future kids' DNA, and it's going to be someone that we will never meet. And it's really crazy. It's a crazy thing to, when you like really break it down and think about it. And I have a friend who's gay, and he's single, and he's going through this process right now. And that was his biggest hang up too. It's like he really struggled with the egg donor, and he finally landed on someone. But it was like I gave him that piece of advice. It's like, you just got to at some point convince yourself not to overthink it.
Because of course you can allow it to hold you up forever and ever, right? I mean, you can use any points in this process to stall it because it's so overwhelming. So you just sort of, or it feels in the moment so overwhelming, and so you just, if you want it to stall, it's a great opportunity to be like, okay, well, I can't choose an egg donor. I have there's so many reasons why I can't choose it. But in reality, it's just a tactic, I think. And I was definitely using various points through the process to try and stall it a little bit because I was feeling anxious about the process overall.
Well, that is, I mean, what Justin just said, you know, because there are so many steps and you can pause it. Like when we were ready for the transfer, I think you remember this, we were doing the math, and if we were going to do the transfer, and I was counting, 9 months from this transfer, and it was going to land right when Modern Family was ending. And I was meant to go to New York to start doing a play. The play didn't happen because of COVID, but Modern Family did end at that same time. And I had a little bit of a panic attack. I was like, I don't think that this month, that this 3-month window here that we're looking at is the right time to start a family. There's such a big thing in my life ending. I really need to close that chapter and start with a fresh page a few months later. And so we ended up stalling a little bit, and we ended up pushing the transfer so Beckett wouldn't be due at that time. And it was I felt like maybe I wasn't doing the right thing, and I was sort of messing with fate. But I'm glad we did that. But it was that thing of like we can continue to do that for a long time. There will always be something 9 months from now that will be in the way.
I have patients of mine that for some, the religious background of the egg donor is the most important.
Yeah.
For others, the IQ is the most important. For others, it's just health backgrounds. And for many, I think the physical appearance is. My wife and I have a gay couple in New York that we love and we're really good friends with, and they know what I do. And one day they were telling me their story, and he said, when we picked an egg donor, we just like looked at ourselves and we're like, we're not the 2 best looking guys in the world. We're good. We're fine. We're going to just pick a normal egg donor that we like, that's wholesome and fits all of our checks, and we're going to just go with it. Yeah. And he always says they have the best kids ever, and they're amazing and they're lovely. And then I have patients that like pay for supermodels to be their egg donors, and we have some issues here and there with some of these people that they pick. So I'm glad that. I think it's important to stress that is a very important part of this process to pick an egg donor that you feel comfortable with. By the way, we do have patients that like they in their legal contracts that like at the age of 18, like they are open to be reached out to, and so I just want to let people know that are listening that just because right now he's single and he's going through this, and he had an arrangement and he actually knows his egg donor from now and wants her to be part of their life. So it's very individual, and you can choose to do it in many different ways.
Absolutely.
I think also the other strange part about the egg donor process that I often think about is sort of the idea of, and we've talked about this, but the idea of, does this egg donor give a lot of eggs to other couples? Are we sharing DNA with a lot of gay couples in Los Angeles? Will my child somehow meet a potential child from that egg donor or with somebody else and like date them, like all of those weird complexities that exist in this space?
So those are definitely issues that I think everyone thinks about. The American Society of Reproductive Medicine has made limitations on the number of times you can donate, which is 6 times. And I think they do populational studies. So I think if you're living in a small town of 500 people, using the same egg donor for everyone is not the smartest idea. I'm not going to lie. I think that's just a true concern that everyone else has. I think, though, in the future, things are going to be rather different. You can have your DNA checked and it tells you who you're related to. I get an email once a week that is reminding me who my dad is. Yeah. So, and I know who my dad is. So it's just like a very interesting thing. But, I've also gotten a call from someone who lives in Europe and says, I think I'm one of your relatives. She was a message sent to me on Instagram, and I said, okay. And after calling my dad and saying, I think one of your cousins has a child in the UK, he's like, yes, I'm completely aware.
Wow.
And he knew about it. And, I have been very nice to this person because I feel bad that she doesn't have a relationship with her real dad that she really wants, and it's not my place to tell them what to do. But right. It opens up doors, and I think in the future, these things are going to pop up as, I think, important points that people have to address even now.
Right.
Well, even as you say with 23andMe, because we don't know our egg donor, nor will we. But in the future, should our child or children want to get on 23andMe or Ancestry.com or whatever, there's a possibility that they find out who this person is, and so that's just a reality of what you're saying. This DNA science that will trace our children back to that person eventually if they're all on it, right? So there's an opportunity at some point should that be something that Beckett wants.
You know what? There's a lot of things that science brings to the table. Whether it's good or it's bad, it's there. Whether we choose to follow those things or it's kind of up to us. But yeah, I guess having those opportunities is great. Have you guys started to think about school for Beckett?
We have.
Yeah, we've actually toured a few preschools. Yes.
I think that we're a little early, right?
Were.
I mean, I just felt he's 16 months. He can't start until he's 2.5, at least at the 2 places we toured. But I set up 2 tours, and we loved both of them. Again, another decision in the process of just like, I suppose the exercise of making these decisions is more just about us really coming to terms and making the decision. The same with the egg donor. It was less about the egg donors that we were presented. They were all great. It was just sort of us going through the process of like finally just being decisive on one. And so we've, I think, decided on a top choice. So now we just have to go through the process of filling out the forms and all that.
It's so not fun.
Yeah, I
looked at it. Welcome to West Side private schools, and it's going to haunt you for many, many more years to come.
Yeah.
But hopefully it's going to be a good choice that works well for you guys. I'm assuming that hopefully this family is growing. It's too cute to not keep growing.
It is pretty cute. Yeah, I think, we hope to grow the family a little bit more. Not too much. I mean, again, I will reiterate.
That was a quick little correction.
Yeah, not too much. I think 2 is probably our goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, I'm 46, and, I think I keep thinking I'm an older dad, but that's comparing myself to, like, my dad who had me when he was so young. I have so many friends that are, my age and older who are,
having kids for the first.
Yeah,
exactly. I think it's a total different generation. Yeah. I mean, my parents were done having kids in their 20s, and I was 45 when I had my last kid. So it's one of those things, and it does get harder as you get older.
Yeah.
That back.
Yeah, the back thing is really an issue.
The back thing. It's like a lot of other things, but yes, they're definitely true and they're definitely there.
Yeah.
But I am glad that you guys are enjoying every minute of this, the good and the bad, because that's what parenting is all about. It's the good and the bad.
Yeah, nothing's bad. It's just challenge. Has there anything been bad? Nothing's been bad.
There's moments. There are moments that are challenging.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's,
in the moment they seem really bad, but then in hindsight,
Beckett had his first cold, which was terrifying, especially in the days of COVID, where you're just sort of, there's all of that scary around the world, around health. And Beckett hurt his wrist, and so we had to take him to an orthopedist, and that was scary. And, when I was a kid, when I was 14, I had cancer. And so I often think about, having Beckett makes me think how incredibly challenging it must have been for my parents. I mean, I was 14, so I could communicate, but I was treated in pediatric oncology it was me as a 14-year-old. There was a boy who was my closest friend in treatment days, I won't tell you his name. He was 7, and then the rest of the patients were all infants. And so the idea that you would, God forbid, have something like that as a parent to deal with your kids being sick, just like all of that makes you really appreciate, what my parents had to go through with me being sick and the challenges that was, and then also just the little things like the orthopedist where it's terrifying. You're in charge of this creature who you love without like any endless love. You can't even understand why and how you care so much about this creature, and then you're responsible for them, and then you are also like having to make all of these decisions that impact them forever and ever, and it's just like it's so overwhelming in the greatest way. And he's healthy and great and all the things, but it's scary.
It is scary, but I think one tiny piece of advice is that you can't make them scary, because I promise you, what everyone tells you, it just gets harder as it goes on, is 100% true. Because I remember like, oh, how could it get harder? The diapers, going to bed at night, everything, like the worst. It gets harder. But I think that mankind is made in a way that we just kind of learn. Like, the baby arrives, there's not much they need. Like, you need to burp them and feed them and change them and put them down to go to bed. And we just kind of learned that. And then as we've learned that, then the next things pop up. And it's a nice little transition. It's important really not to forget and enjoy, because it does go by really fast.
Yeah.
If you can just, in the last year and a half, when your kid was a newborn to what it is now, in a year and a half, they're going to be another human being as well.
Absolutely.
So we are ready whenever you want to go for another one. In case that comes up anytime soon, we are ready for you. I really want to thank you both for being here today and talking about a topic that for some is challenging and that you guys have opened doors. I love all the advocacy work that you guys do for everyone. And I have gotten to know the two of you really well over the years, and I just want to let you know you're both fantastic guys. And now I'm very proud to see two fantastic dads. So thank you so much for being here with me on the Fertile Life podcast today. Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
Dr. G.